Ha ha! What's happening, everyone? It is I, the man, the myth, the mustache, Tim here, with a brand new video for you. Welcome to part 9 of What If Midoriya Was an AFO Fan. I wanted to stop by and say hello, and please sit back and relax in your pins and needles chairs. With that little intro out of the way, let's get this story going, shall we? The remaining 16 students were being sorted into their brackets for the first round of the final event. President Mike kicked back in the booth with Aizawa as they waited for the break to end. Finally able to announce the break was over, Mike shouted out over the microphone the first brackets. Alright! Welcome back, ladies and gents! This is the final event, the 1v1 matches! Who will take the gold? Who will prove they're ready for the membership of the new age of heroes Izuku Midoriya mentioned? So many questions, not enough answers. For our first matches we have Izuku Midoriya versus Mashiro Ojiro, Tenya Ida versus Minoru Mineta, Toguro Kamakiri versus Naito Monoma, Shoto Todoroki versus Yui Kodai, Hitoshi Shinzo versus Juzo Hananuki, Shihai Kurohiro versus Fumikage Tokoyami, Kyoka Jiro versus Toru Hagakure, and Ibara Shiozaki versus Momo Yaoyorozu. Listening to the matchups, Midoriya smiled cheerfully as he drank a bottle of water, getting ready to play Mr. Goody Two-Shoes again for the adoring crowds and incompetent pros. Hearing his name called up for his battle with Ojiro, Midoriya wandered out to the field and stood on the stage, bowing to Ojiro before taking a combative stance. Ojiro returned the bow, taking his own stance. Being very well educated on martial arts, Ojiro could tell Midoriya was using a style known as Aikido, but as the two started to clash, it became obvious Midoriya was incorporating a second combat style into the battle through his additional hands provided by the claw pack, this being Judo. In a humiliating display, Midoriya had managed to not only defeat Ojiro, but defeat the boy in his own element without suffering the masked teen's infamous telekinesis. Many people in the audience didn't hold out any hope for Mineta beating Ida, but as Mineta's new master once said, underestimating a foe is their biggest mistake. Ever since joining the league, Mineta had proven to be surprisingly devoted and loyal, really coming into his own when the villain group trained him up a bit to have more confidence and bravery. Ida charged Mineta, attempting to punt the small teen out of the ring, only for Mineta to manage to inhumanly jump over the speedster as he threw sticky ball after sticky ball, trapping Ida the second he stood in them, giving Mineta a surprisingly quick win. Class 1A was completely caught off guard by this display. First, he gets more confident and brave, then a new outfit, and now this? Just as Midoriya had warned, a fight between teammates had come. Kamakiri had no desire to hold anything back. He owed the league for opening his eyes and would not insult them by holding back. Monoma wasn't interested in showing any mercy either, mainly because of his pride, but also because, like Kamakiri, he didn't want to drag the league's name through the mud, especially his best friend Izuku's team that both he and Kamakiri were a part of. The audience cheered and held their breath as the two villain turncoats clashed over and over, Kamakiri using his agility to dodge Monoma's borrowed quirks, and using his own blades to fight back when Monoma used Kamakiri's quirk against him. The battle was long and drawn out just as Kamakiri wanted, finally taking down Monoma when his quirk's time limits ran out. Unsurprisingly, the next battle ended in a victory for Todoroki as he froze the unprepared Kodai in a matter of moments, leaving her unable to move. Midoriya watched with interest at the next match, after congratulating Kamakiri and Mineta after consoling Monoma's wounded pride, of course. Shinzo stepped up onto the stage and stared down Hananuki. With the signal to begin, Hananuki immediately activated his softening quirk, causing the arena beneath Shinzo to act like quicksand, pulling him down. What is this? Hananuki smirked and was about to answer his question, but as the first few letters left his mouth, he stood stock still like a mindless zombie. Shinzo then ordered Hananuki to release him and walk out of bounds. Hananuki didn't hesitate to follow Shinzo's commands, getting flicked on the forehead by Shinzo after the round ended. Now it was the Battle of the Edgelords, and frankly, Midoriya didn't care much for the outcome, and decided to ditch watching it, only to overhear something interesting from just around the corner. A conversation over the phone with Ida, and not the casual kind either. getting Jiro to listen in and relay what's going on. Midoriya found this information very juicy. Sounds like the hero killer had struck down Ingenium, and judging from Ida's killing intent exuding from him, this walking rulebook wanted revenge. Simply perfect. Returning to the stands, it seemed Tokoyami had claimed the victory on this one. Jiro versus Hagakure. This could go either way, really. Time to see who trained harder. Midoriya sat back and watched the two girls attack one another. Thank God for thermal vision. Honestly, the battle was very similar to Monoma versus Kamakiri. It was anyone's guess as just when one would gain the upper hand, the other would wrestle it back. But unexpectedly, Jiro roared out an attack named against Hagakure.
Banshee Shriek!
With that, Jiro unleashed a massive disorientating shrieking from her various speakers, which scrambled Hagakure's support gear, disabling it, temporarily uncloaking the invisible teen. While disoriented by Jiro's attack, Hagakure felt a kick knock her down and out of bounds. Once again, Midoriya went to congratulate and console his teammates, having little interest in the next match either. Well, that was the case until Midoriya watched a little surprised at Momo carving her way through Shiozaki's vines using a fricking chainsaw of all things. The match ended in Shiozaki surrendering, not wanting to fight a chainsaw-wielding Yaoyorozu anymore. And who could blame her, honestly? Man, oh man, are we in for an interesting second round, folks? This round we have Izuku Midoriya versus Kyoka Jiro, Momo Yaoyorozu versus Fumikage Tokoyami, Minoru Mineta versus Hitoshi Shinzo, and Togaru Kamakiri versus Shoto Todoroki! Mike screamed out over the audio systems, hyping the crowds for the next round to continue. As annoying as President Mike was, Midoriya had to admit this guy could work a crowd better than anybody else out there. Midoriya stepped into the arena with Jiro. He could already feel Shigaraki watching this fight and laughing his ass off. The shaggy villain was likely already coming up with various jokes about them fighting like an old married couple or something, and he was right. Shigaraki was wheezing and choking on his whiskey as he watched.
Ah, look at that, Kurogiri. They're having their first lover's spat.
Kurogiri just nodded silently, cleaning up the spilt whiskey as he poured Shigaraki a fresh glass. You realize, Yamaki won't be letting either of us live this down, Izuku. Jiro spoke softly through her mask with a hint of a chuckle to her tone. Midoriya nodded, sighing as he took another combative stance, whilst Jiro withdrew her twin stun batons. The two teens gave their all, and surprisingly, Jiro's sonic blasts kept Midoriya too disoriented to fly, and she had managed to keep him on his toes enough with her stun baton attacks. As Jiro warmed herself up to unleash another Banshee Shriek attack, Midoriya unleashed his own surprise. A claw emerged from his pack, shining a red light upon Jiro, erasing her quirk. Unable to attack with her quirk, she charged Midoriya, only to stop dead in her tracks as Midoriya shouted, "Telekinetic Marionette!" He began to force Jiro to attack herself with her batons until she fell into unconsciousness. Then he proceeded to gently lower her onto a stretcher from the medic bots that had come to check her over. This fight's results received a large amount of booing from the audience, but Midoriya ignored it until a voice cut through the crowd. A voice he hadn't heard in years. Underhanded. Doesn't deserve the win? I suppose that means I don't deserve my honorable title of number 5, Seeing as I fight in a very similar manner. This young man fought how any of us would when faced with an opponent that has us on the ropes. We'd use whatever we have in our arsenal to achieve victory for the people. Of all people to defend him, this was definitely a surprise. Edge Shot must either not recall what Midoriya did all those years ago to Bakugo's friend, or he was a firm believer in second chances. This video is sponsored by NordVPN. Staying safe online is an ever-growing difficulty, and hackers could exploit you. NordVPN allows you to change your IP address, making you harder to track and securing your privacy. In addition to providing you with safe passage through the web, you can also expand the reach of your favorite streaming services. Are you tired of going through 2, 3, or even 4 streaming services to watch your favorite anime? Well, with NordVPN, you can change your country and be able to binge shows like My Hero Academia, Naruto, and many others on your favorite streaming service with just a press of a button. Check out the link in the description to get 72% off when buying for 2 years at $3.29 a month. This deal is for a limited time, and thank you once again to NordVPN for sponsoring this video. Midoriya watched the next round, eager to see how exactly his intellectual rival Momo would fare against Tokoyami and his Dark Shadow. Slightly surprisingly, she didn't do nearly as well as Midoriya anticipated, which moved Tokoyami up the threat list quite a bit as he had forced Yaoyorozu into purely defending herself straight out of the gate, eventually pushing her outside the ring with the force of Dark Shadow's attack. As predicted, Mineta really didn't last long against Shinzo's brainwashing. Even if he knew Shinzo's quirk and how it's triggered, it really didn't take long for the tired teen to get under Mineta's skin with his barbed comments making the boy slip up and answer him. Although he put up a good fight, Kamakiri was eventually overpowered by Todoroki's ice. Here it was, the semifinals. Okay, just as I told you folks, you had one heck of a second round for this event, but the show ain't over yet! Not 1 minute! Next up we have 1B's telekinetic titan, Izuku Midoriya versus 1A's frosty fighter, Shoto Todoroki! And the Dark Decimator Fumikage Tokoyami versus the brainwashing battler, Hitoshi Shinzo! Ha! Telekinetic Titan. Not bad. Midoriya made sure to make a mental note of that title. It'd definitely make an impact during his villain debut. Now, this next fight was definitely one All for One would be watching closely. Time to embarrass Endeavor and his poor excuse for a successor. This crowd wants a show, and Midoriya would give them one. No. Tactikill would. The two teens stepped up to the arena and stared each other down the moment the round began. Todoroki fell onto his back, looking at Midoriya in horror, as murderous intent exuded from him on a level never felt before, as floating blue flames surrounded the telekinetic teen. That's right, Todoroki. I know about your brother Toya, Midoriya thought to himself as he walked closer to Todoroki. The sound of Endeavor shouting for his son to get up fell on deaf ears as Todoroki blasted wave after wave of ice at Midoriya, desperately only for it to melt away from the flames that floated around Midoriya. Falling back into base instinct, Todoroki began blasting his flames at the Black Helm Terror, only to see Midoriya brush them aside using his telekinesis. The boy stood over a shaking Todoroki, and a metal claw reached out for his face and released a pink gas.
Rest now, Todoroki. It's over.
This was the last thing Todoroki heard before being knocked out by a pressurized blast of Somnambulist from Midoriya's claw pack. Shinzo faced down Tokoyami, and it went as expected. The sentient quirk wielder claimed victory easily, even if Shinzo did put up a fair fight in hand-to-hand, and using his capture scarf. When able to dodge Dark Shadow. Ultimately, however, he was pinned by the Living Shadow and made to surrender. Midoriya now stood against Tokoyami in the arena. Not the final fight he was expecting, but frankly, he took more glee in embarrassing Bakugo by getting him disqualified before the second round than defeating him easily in a 1v1 in the finals. Midoriya stood still, gesturing for Tokoyami to hit him with the best shot he had. Accepting the invitation, Tokoyami unleashed Dark Shadow right into a waiting trap as Midoriya created a bright blue flaming orb that caused Dark Shadow to shriek and retreat back into Tokoyami.
As I thought, your quirk can't take bright lights at close range.
Eventually, Midoriya encircled Tokoyami with blue flaming orbs and called for his surrender. With a grunt, the bird-headed boy surrendered to Midoriya, giving him the win and first place, while Tokoyami stood second. Due to still being unconscious from his fight with Midoriya, Todoroki was unable to battle Shinzo for who should claim third place, automatically giving the position to Shinzo. With the sports festival over, Midoriya headed straight to Vlad King and asked if he and his friends could leave campus and celebrate, getting his approval and later Aizawa's. Midoriya did indeed leave to celebrate with Phoenix Squadron right after the festival. Of course, it wouldn't be a real celebration without the rest of Midoriya's real family, the League. Coming in through a warp gate, Midoriya was surprised by what greeted him, a large group of new faces all gathered around the bar.
Welcome back, Izuku. Nice work making a speech that almost inspired every villain in Japan right under the heroes' noses. Not to mention your win. Speaking of inspired villains, you've brought in quite a few new recruits, And as our in-house tactician, I want you to weigh them up.
Midoriya eyed up the various villains, noting that he recognized quite a few here. Some were unknown to him, but still seemed fairly capable. I see. So let's see, who have we got? You must be Dabi, the villain with a vendetta against Endeavor. Frankly, I can't blame you because of your background. Mr. Compress, yes? Interesting. It'll be nice working alongside another individual as well-mannered as Kurogiri. Huh. Moonfish. Didn't expect a demented cannibal to want to join our ranks. Sorry, but you just don't make the cut. Oh, and you've seen too much to be let go. So, sorry not sorry. Midoriya reached out towards at Moonfish, causing him to crumble to the ground in agony before breathing his final breath. Jesus, what did you do? That was messed up. It was badass. Midoriya glanced at the masked figure that spoke in a contradictory manner, smirking. I telekinetically grabbed him by the heart and crushed it. A quick and clean death. After all, I don't want to cover my uniform in blood. Kurogiri, could you ever be so kind to send his remains to the doctor? I think he'd like another edition. Complying with the request, Kurogiri warped the now-deceased Moonfish out of the room. Midoriya then went back to examining everyone else. Okay now, I definitely know who you are, Muscular. In fact, I'm glad you're here. Saves me a trip. Without another word, Muscular felt the bones in his arms and legs shattering as Midoriya's claw pack grabbed him by the face, releasing another controlled blast of pink gas, knocking him out cold. Shall I take that one to Dr. Ujiko for you too, young Tactical? He was one of the individuals you had listed for your special project. Midoriya gave a nod and a wave, letting Kurogiri handle the rest. It was all coming together with his Nomu. Using Hizashi's Fire Breath quirk, Muscular's Pump Up quirk, the Sludge Villain's Sludge Form quirk. Yes! Just a few more and Hizashi would be ready to be finally useful for once in his life. Not to mention, Master promised to give this one the same quirks as the USJ Nomu after Midoriya had requested such after seeing it in action. Sorry about that, everyone. I like to run a tight ship with new recruits. Moonfish was too unpredictable, a variable for me to make any meaningful plans around, so he had to go. As for Muscular, he'll serve a greater purpose. I trust none of you are dissuaded by this? No? Good. Now, unfortunately, I do not know of you five, so please, by all means, introduce yourselves and your quirks. Midoriya looked over the five individuals with a warm smile, as if he hadn't just committed murder a few moments ago. One was a man in a bodysuit and mask split into two colors, black and gray. Another of the five was an individual with a massive magnet, glasses, and red hair. Next was a girl dressed in a school uniform, holding a knife with a smile. She was approximately the same age as Midoriya. Beside her was a boy in a gas mask who also wore a school uniform. He held a revolver in one hand, spinning the chamber repeatedly with the other. Lastly was a male who looked like a lizard, dressed up in the hero killer cosplay, with an insane-looking sword on his back that was seemingly made from other swords. Names twice! Nice to meet you! Screw you! I can duplicate any individual so long as I have their height and shoe size. Granted, my clones can't take much of a beating, but they're smart enough to think for themselves and act like the original would, making it impossible to tell the difference. Midoriya nodded with approval, turning to the individual with the magnet. Call me Magna, or Big Sis Mags. My quirk allows me to magnetize people by their gender, men being polarized north and women south. Shaking Mag's hand, Midoriya happily smiled. Big Sis, huh? He did always want a sister, and it seemed the growing family of the League had presented him with one, and one with a very useful quirk.
Hi, I'm Himiko, Toka Himiko. When I drink someone's blood, I can turn into them for a period of time, determined by how much blood I've consumed. And let me just say, it is always so good to taste someone's blood.
Midoriya gave a brief nod towards the psychopathic girl. Not as unpredictable as Moonfish, but could be trouble if she doesn't learn to do as ordered. Still, not impossible to plan around, though. Hey, I'm Mustard Gas. I'm good with guns and I can produce a swirling vortex of gas that renders people unconscious if they inhale too much of it. And I can sense the slightest movements in my gas clouds.
Not too strong, but train this one up a bit, and he could prove very useful. Midoriya shook Mustard's hand, giving another welcoming smile.
Spinner, not much about me to tell. I can climb walls, I'm good with swords as you no doubt guessed, and I'm pretty good at driving when I need to be, even if I ain't got a license.
Another one that has potential but needs work. Perhaps Master All for One can be persuaded to grant this one some extra quirks. Midoriya hummed to himself, giving Spinner a respectful bow, which he received in turn.
Well, congratulations!
If you're standing here, it's because I've deemed you all excellent candidates for the league. But let Moonfish serve as a reminder. Should any of you prove that you cannot follow orders or turn traitor, I will personally hunt you down and make you beg to be sent to hell. Otherwise, welcome to the family, the League of Villains.
And that's our video for the day, so thank you all for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, there are a few more things that I'd like to go over with you before the video ends. First, if you're in the mood for some great storytelling, We the Celestials has got you covered! Our We the Celestials, My Hero Academia, and Naruto What If channels retell the story of their namesake anime with a twist. Check it out if you're interested. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I want to thank everyone who was involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details are also in the description. Please give the writer and the editor some love. They do a lot of work here. I'm just the voice. They're the real magicians behind the magic. Lastly, if you're interested in what we do here with the Celestials, I want to extend to you an invitation to join our team. We only have one caveat. You must be 16 years or older to join. You can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interests by joining the recruitment Discord in the link below. We're always looking for new members. And with that out of the way, that's been today's video, so have an amazing day. And as always, be kind to yourselves, be kind to others, and stay awesome, because I know you're all awesome. This has been Tim, Mustache out.